Most people spend their entire lives trying to become more aware of opportunities, more aware of danger, more aware of what other people are thinking, feeling, and intending. Yet there is a group of people who often possess a level of awareness that others spend decades trying to develop. The problem is that many of them don't see it as a gift. They see it as a burden. If you've ever walked into a room and instantly sensed tension before a single word was spoken, if you've ever felt emotionally exhausted after spending time around negative people, if you've ever noticed details that everyone else seemed to miss, then you may have spent years believing that something was wrong with you. You may have been told that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too affected by your environment, too aware of other people's moods. And over time, those labels can become a prison. But what if the very thing you've been trying to suppress is actually one of your greatest strengths? What if your sensitivity is not a weakness, but a signal? What if your awareness is not a liability, but an advantage? What if the trait you've spent years managing, hiding, or apologizing for is actually a superpower waiting to be understood? Today, we're going to challenge one of the most destructive assumptions in modern life, that sensitivity equals vulnerability. Because when you look closely, you'll discover something extraordinary. Many of the world's most effective leaders, creators, innovators, strategists, counselors, and visionaries share a common characteristic. They notice what others miss. They feel what others overlook. They detect patterns before they become obvious. The difference is that they learned how to use their sensitivity rather than be controlled by it. Imagine possessing a radar system that constantly scans your environment for emotional shifts, social dynamics, subtle changes, hidden intentions, and emerging opportunities. Now imagine not knowing how that radar works. Imagine receiving all that information every day without a manual. That's what life feels like for many highly sensitive people. The information keeps arriving, the signals never stop, the awareness keeps expanding. But without understanding, awareness becomes overwhelm. Without skill, perception becomes exhaustion. Without strategy, sensitivity becomes stress. The goal is not to reduce your awareness. The goal is to increase your mastery. Because the moment you stop seeing sensitivity as a problem and start seeing it as information, everything changes. Think about elite performers in any field. The greatest athletes notice tiny shifts in movement. The greatest negotiators notice subtle changes in tone. The greatest leaders notice morale changes before they become crises. The greatest artists notice beauty where others see ordinary objects. Excellence often begins with heightened perception. The challenge is that perception alone is not enough. A person can detect every emotional current in a room and still feel powerless. A person can notice every problem and still struggle. A person can absorb every feeling around them and still lack direction. Power emerges when awareness meets control. That is where transformation begins. One of the most important lessons you can learn is this: not every emotion you feel belongs to you. Ride that again. Not every emotion you feel belongs to you. Many highly sensitive individuals unconsciously absorb the emotional atmosphere around them. They enter a stressed environment and become stressed. They enter an anxious environment and become anxious. They enter a frustrated environment and become frustrated. Then they assume those emotions originated within them. But awareness and ownership are different things. You can detect something without becoming it. You can observe something without absorbing it. You can recognize something without carrying it. This distinction alone can change your life, because the moment you learn to separate observation from identification, your energy begins returning to you. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," you begin asking, "What am I noticing?" Instead of saying, "Something is wrong with me," you begin asking, "What information is my awareness giving me?" And those questions create freedom. Highly sensitive people often possess an extraordinary ability to detect inconsistencies. They notice when words and behavior don't match. They notice when someone says they are fine but clearly are not. They notice hidden tension behind forced smiles. They notice subtle shifts in confidence, uncertainty, excitement, fear, and motivation. This ability is powerful. But it becomes dangerous when you believe it is your responsibility to fix everything you notice. Awareness does not create obligation. You are not required to rescue every person you understand. You are not required to solve every problem you perceive. You are not required to carry the emotional weight of everyone around you. A lighthouse illuminates the shoreline. It does not swim out to save every ship. Its power comes from remaining grounded. Your greatest strength emerges when you learn the same principle. Ground yourself, angent yourself, protect your energy. Then allow your awareness to work for you instead of against you. There is another misconception that keeps many highly sensitive people trapped. They assume confidence belongs only to the loud, aggressive, dominant personalities they see in movies, on television, or on social media. But real confidence is not volume. Real confidence is certainty. Real confidence is clarity. Real confidence is trust in your own perception. And when you begin trusting your perception, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking constant validation. You stop ignoring your instincts. You stop dismissing your observations. You stop apologizing for noticing things others don't see. Your sensitivity becomes a source of intelligence rather than insecurity. The world often rewards speed. Sensitive people often excel at depth. The world often celebrates reaction. Sensitive people often excel at reflection. The world often glorifies noise. Sensitive people often excel at insight, and insight has immense value because while others rush toward obvious answers, you have the capacity to discover deeper truths. While others react to appearances, you can detect underlying realities. While others focus on symptoms, you can identify causes. That ability is rare, and rare abilities should be developed, not discarded. The next stage of your growth begins when you stop asking, "How do I become less sensitive?" and start asking, "How do I become more skilled with my sensitivity?" Those are completely different questions. One assumes you are broken. The other assumes you are capable. One seeks reduction. The other seeks mastery. And mastery is where your future lives. Every extraordinary strength requires training. Intelligence requires training. Creativity requires training. Leadership requires training. Awareness requires training. Sensitivity is no different. When trained properly, it becomes intuition. When refined properly, it becomes wisdom. When directed properly, it becomes influence. When protected properly, it becomes resilience. The goal is not to harden yourself until you feel nothing. The goal is to strengthen yourself until you can feel deeply without being overwhelmed. That is real power. That is emotional strength. That is personal mastery. And once you understand this principle, you begin seeing your life differently. The traits you once criticized become clues. The experiences you once regretted become lessons. The challenges you once resisted become training grounds. You begin recognizing that your journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about becoming the strongest version of who you already are. Your awareness is not the enemy. Your perception is not the enemy. Your sensitivity is not the enemy. Lack of understanding is the enemy. Lack of boundaries is the enemy. Lack of training is the enemy. And the moment those obstacles begin disappearing, your natural strengths start emerging. The world does not need fewer sensitive people. The world needs more highly sensitive people who understand their own power. People who can perceive without collapsing. People who can care without carrying everything. People who can understand without surrendering themselves. People who can remain compassionate while remaining strong. Because true strength is not the absence of feeling. True strength is the ability to feel deeply while remaining firmly in control of your direction. That is the superpower. That is the advantage. That is the transformation. The moment you begin viewing your sensitivity as a strategic advantage, another realization starts to emerge. You discover that the greatest challenge in your life was never the intensity of your awareness. The greatest challenge was the story you attach to it. Stories are powerful. They shape identity. They influence behavior. They determine possibility. And many highly sensitive people carry stories that quietly limit their potential. They tell themselves they are fragile. They tell themselves they are easily overwhelmed. They tell themselves they are different in a way that puts them at a disadvantage. These stories become invisible rules. rules that dictate what opportunities they pursue, rules that determine how much confidence they display, rules that influence how much power they allow themselves to have. But every transformation begins with questioning the stories that no longer serve you. Consider this for a moment. A person notices details others miss. A person detects emotional shifts before they become obvious. A person can identify subtle changes in behavior. A person can sense patterns that others overlook. From one perspective, that individual appears burdened. From another perspective, that individual possesses advanced situational awareness. The facts remain identical. Only the interpretation changes. And interpretation changes everything. The human mind is constantly searching for evidence to support its beliefs. If you believe your sensitivity is a weakness, your mind will find examples. It will collect memories of difficult situations. It will focus on moments when you felt overwhelmed. It will highlight every experience that appears to confirm the belief. But if you begin believing your sensitivity is a strength that requires refinement, your mind starts finding different evidence. You begin noticing your intuition being accurate. You begin noticing your ability to understand people. You begin noticing your capacity for empathy. You begin noticing your skill at recognizing opportunities and risks. Suddenly, the same trait appears completely different. This is not positive thinking. This is accurate thinking. Because every strength contains challenges, and every challenge contains strengths. Confidence without awareness becomes arrogance. Awareness without confidence becomes anxiety. But when awareness and confidence combine, something extraordinary happens. You become difficult to deceive. You become difficult to manipulate. You become difficult to intimidate. Because you begin trusting what you see. One of the greatest gifts available to highly sensitive people is pattern recognition. Most people focus on individual events. Highly sensitive individuals often notice connections between events. They recognize recurring behaviors. They detect familiar emotional dynamics. They notice when history is repeating itself. This ability can dramatically improve decision-making. Imagine two people entering a new situation. The first person sees only what is happening now. The second person notices subtle similarities to dozens of previous experiences. Who possesses more information? Who possesses greater predictive ability? Who is better positioned to make an intelligent decision? The answer is obvious. Yet many highly sensitive people underestimate this capability because it feels natural to them. What comes naturally is often undervalued. People assume that if something is easy for them, it must be easy for everyone. But that is rarely true. A gifted musician may underestimate musical talent because melodies come naturally. A gifted athlete may underestimate coordination because movement feels effortless. A gifted communicator may underestimate social intelligence because conversation feels intuitive, and highly sensitive individuals often underestimate awareness because perception feels automatic. Never confuse familiarity with commonness. Just because something feels natural to you does not mean it is ordinary. In fact, it may be one of your rarest advantages. The next lesson is equally important. Awareness without boundaries creates exhaustion. Awareness with boundaries creates wisdom. Think about that distinction. Many people believe boundaries are walls. They imagine boundaries as rejection. They imagine boundaries as distance. But healthy boundaries are not walls. They are filters. A filter allows valuable information through while blocking what is unnecessary. A filter protects quality. A filter preserves function. A filter maintains clarity. Without boundaries, highly sensitive people often become overloaded by competing demands, emotions, expectations, and responsibilities. Their attention becomes fragmented. Their energy becomes depleted. Their focus becomes scattered, not because they are weak, because they are attempting to process too much at once. Imagine carrying 10 radios that are all broadcasting simultaneously. The problem is not your hearing. The problem is signal overload. Many highly sensitive people spend years trying to reduce their sensitivity when what they actually need is stronger filtering, the ability to decide what deserves attention. the ability to decide what deserves energy, the ability to decide what deserves emotional investment. These decisions are life-changing because attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy goes, results follow. And where results accumulate, destiny follows. Protect your attention, protect your focus, protect your energy, not because the world is dangerous, because your gifts are valuable. A master craftsperson protects their tools. A world-class athlete protects their body. A highly sensitive person must learn to protect their awareness. Another misunderstanding worth eliminating is the belief that emotional sensitivity and mental toughness are opposites. They are not. In many cases, they strengthen one another. Mental toughness is not the absence of emotion. Mental toughness is maintaining direction despite emotion. Anyone can remain calm when conditions are easy. Anyone can remain confident when success is guaranteed. Anyone can remain positive when circumstances are favorable. The true test comes during uncertainty. The true test comes during difficulty. The true test comes when emotions become intense. And highly sensitive individuals possess a unique opportunity. Because they often experience emotional intensity more vividly, they have more opportunities to develop emotional mastery. Every challenge becomes training. Every difficult conversation becomes practice. Every setback becomes an exercise in resilience. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to strengthen internal stability. Over time, this creates a remarkable combination: deep feeling, strong awareness, clear perception, emotional control. When these qualities work together, they become extraordinarily powerful because people trust those who understand emotion. People follow those who remain steady under pressure. People respect those who demonstrate empathy without losing strength, and people remember those who make them feel understood. One of the greatest advantages of a highly sensitive person is the ability to understand what others are experiencing, not because they have read about it, not because they studied it, because they can often sense it directly. This creates opportunities in leadership, business, relationships, education, coaching, communication, negotiation, and countless other areas of life. The future increasingly belongs to people who can understand human behavior. Technology continues advancing, information continues expanding, and resentment continues growing. But understanding people remains one of the most valuable skills on earth. And many highly sensitive individuals already possess the foundation for that skill. The question is whether they will develop it intentionally. Imagine spending years apologizing for a talent you were meant to cultivate. Imagine spending years suppressing an ability that could have transformed your life. Imagine spending years viewing your greatest strength through the lens of insecurity.